Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who kept us going for over 450 episodes.
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week is that dude, bro. Thank you,
dude, bro.
Also, you can't see it, but this is a classic Joker Batman shirt.
Yeah.
That someone bought me for my 19th birthday. And
it's still good.
Well, I never wore it because it was like an extra large or a large or something like that. And in the move, I found it when we were moving across country. I found it. I was all like, "Oh, your boy got some shoulders now. He can wear this." But walking around in Alabama with a classic Joker holding a gun, most people they don't recognize this version of Joker, which feels weird. Just be like, "Oh, what gun is that?" And I was like, "I have no fucking idea." But look at the Joker. I think it's a fake gun. Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
this is some random. Yeah, and it says like a bang flag and stuff on it. I don't know. It's not a brand of gun though. Like it's not a gun advertisement. This is. It feels weird to have to be like, no, guys, it's the Joker.
It's a comic book.
It hurts. Actually, kind of. I feel both too young and too old at the same time. It's sort of strange. But speaking of the Joker, this is sort of a weird lead-in. The first time I ever watched Matt Reeves' The Batman was on an airplane, and you were just recently on an airplane, and we talked about a couple of movies.
Twice. I was on an airplane twice. Well, I mean, I had to go round trip. I had an 11-hour flight there and a 9-hour flight back. So I had some. But luckily, my flight had a streaming service amount of movies and TV shows.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's one nice thing.
Ton of movies. Some of them recent. When we got on my return flight, they had Deadpool and Wolverine on there.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
So you watched that finally, or did you see that in theaters?
I saw that opening weekend.
Oh, okay. I didn't watch it opening weekend, but I did finally see it.
Yeah, I mean, it was like that was potentially maybe one of the last foreseeable Cape movies I can see like going to on opening weekend or whatever.
You're done. You're burnt out.
I've kind of been burnt out, and like nothing coming down the pipeline. People are gonna be like, "Why, but Doctor Doom, whatever." If early indications are that it's good, I'll go see it. I'm not gonna not see it, but I'm not waiting. I'm not going to the theater at midnight.
It's hard for me to get hype about like comic book movies.
I will say this though. I would say I'll be there opening weekend, whatever, for Spider-Verse 3. That's it.
I'm even sort of burnt out on the animated I think I'm just burnt out on the superhero genre for a little bit. Not that I'm saying that these are going to be bad movies. I'm sure that Spider-Verse will probably be pretty good. But like it feels tired now. It's been feeling tired. It's been limping for a while. Maybe also just like they have to get more and more obscure with the references and or they reboot. Like, what are they going to reboot Captain America to make people give a shit again? I don't know. I hope not, but that seems like they would.
I just whatever. I mean, there's a lot. I'm actually into like sci-fi now. Like, I kind of feel like, and I was thinking about this, and here, let me give you like an unproposed, like unannounced, just sort of list here. I'm like, what are like my like go-to sci-fi films that I think are like, these are great sci-fi. Okay. And they're going to be unusual picks for what I generally enjoy in sci-fi. I love Blade Runner 2049. I love the look of the original, and Rutger Hauer gives an amazing performance, but that is about it.
Yeah, 2049 is a better story.
Like 2049 is phenomenal. That is what I wish 2049 looked a little more like the original, just from an aesthetic angle, but I get they were trying to show you different areas and different places. So whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I think the pretty much the entire franchise, but especially the last few films of the Planet of the Apes films are great sci-fi. It's funny because I watched Rise on the plane because I that one I hadn't seen in so long. The first one of the
Rise is a little weak, but
it's
it's
weak,
still
yeah, and that was basically my take. I'm like, it's funny how so many people just saw that one and were like, yeah, it was pretty good, but they never followed up. And I'm like, oh man, because one, James Franco is not that good of an actor, at least that
he's
at least
good
that
in
I've
some
seen.
things, but you can tell he was phoning that in hard because he didn't know how to act with a CGI character, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
He phoned that one in
I
hard.
mean, he does his job, but it's just like the movie itself is
It's just
weak.
not good. Yeah.
Like of them, it's good still, but it's weak. It's the weakest of them. Like so, it's so harshly weak. And then again, I'm very much Dawn, especially the second one, is phenomenal sci-fi. It's Kingdom of Heaven with future like post-apocalyptic monkeys, apes. Sorry,
Yeah,
apes.
that's the one with Gary Oldman.
Yeah, this is a
Yeah,
Gary Oldman one.
yeah, and Kerry Russell and
Yeah, I never remember the guy, the other main dude's name.
yeah, I'm trying to think of his name. He is a really actually really good actor.
Yeah, and it's kind
Like,
of funny because
he's phenomenal.
frankly, acting wise, he runs circles around like James Franco's acting in the first movie.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that actor in particular, I think he's Australian. Um,
he looks Australian if you.
just a hard man. Uh, no, I think he's Australian. I can't remember exactly, but he was in Terminator Salvation as John Connor.
Was he? Jason Clark is his name.
Jason Clark. That's right. Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, and one of the reasons why people were amped about him getting cast is he plays psychopaths really well.
Mm.
He's the Terminator in that movie. He's the or no, not Salvation. What's the next? Is it Salvation? Uh,
Genesis
Genesis.
or
Yeah,
Dark Fate or
it's. I'm gonna Google it right now because it was a reason to get excited about.
which is funny because he plays like the straight man, like the good man in Dawn. And he does it actually fairly well, but like that's great sci-fi because
Genesis. It's Genesis.
is God. That is what I love in like sci-fi. I love this sort of it's not just cautionary tale stuff, right? But it's like also the whole idea where it's like there's both sides and there's people who are trying to be reasonable and negotiable on each side of a conflict, and then behind them you have other people who are
Right.
also in positions of power who are all very much just like no like scorched earth on them.
Well, it's a movie about diplomacy
Yeah.
and why it often fails. Um, it's actually speaking of actors that I really love and diplomacy. I just finished Diplomat season 2. If you like thriller, you know that kind of
Mm,
stuff, it's Carrie Russell and it's Rufus Sewell or Soul,
mm.
might be Soul is how you pronounce it. But I love Rufus Sewell. He's the bad guy in like A Knight's Tale.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
actor's phenomenal in like everything he's in, and in
Yeah.
this plays Bill Clinton basically. Like it's so obvious this show is just like what if Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were ambassadors that yeah, like
Mm.
it is very clearly that, but it's a great show. Like the acting in it is phenomenal and the Bill Clinton allegory is he's fucking great. His name's Hal Wilder. But anyway, what's funny about that is like I think I saw the first no, I think I saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes on a plane. So
The
and
recent one?
yeah, the recent one. So I saw the very first Planet of the Apes one I saw was War with you. We
Yeah.
went and saw
Yeah,
it
yeah,
when we
at
were
Evo.
at Evo. And then I didn't watch another one for I don't know, ages. And then I saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes on a plane, I want to say. I think I was going to like Sacramento or something. But that one actually wasn't that bad. Like I
Yeah,
was
and that's the director of the Zelda movie,
yeah,
so
West Ball, yeah.
so people are like, "Oh, do you have more faith?" And I'm like, "Not really," because it's gonna be so producer and company driven that, like, he's not gonna have like, it's not him. It's not him that I don't have faith in. I just don't have faith in the movie studio and Nintendo to like let anyone have a creative voice on that film.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder. Well, he clearly has experience dealing with executives and dealing with
Yeah.
higher ups. So I don't know. I'm always going to give the benefit of the doubt just
Hope
because I
so.
want to be excited.
But
But
was it Kevin Durand in that movie?
mhm.
As Proximus Caesar, fantastic performance.
He's also Kevin Durand is one of those actors where it's just like every time he's in a movie, even if the movie's bad, he's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he steals most scenes that he's in. I'm trying to think of what's that Smoking Aces.
Mm,
In Smoking Aces, it's he and I forget it's Chris Pine and someone else play these like neo-Nazi horrendous douchebag killers that like
mm.
they're everyone else is trying to finesse their way into assassinating this guy and they literally walk in the front door with like chainsaws and old World War II machine guns and shit. Uh and Kevin Durand has like a tattoo of like a lady where his armpit hair is her bush. And so, like, when he's taunting somebody, he like sits there and fingers the lady in his armpit or something like that. I might. It's been
Holy
a long
cow.
time since I've seen this, but Kevin Durant is amazing, and Chris Pine's amazing in it too. But like, he steals scenes that he, and I don't even think he has very many lines.
Mm.
I don't think he has any. I can't remember any lines from, but he's amazing. 310 to Yuma, he's great. He plays a douchebag, but like, he's just good, and he's
Wait,
apparently a really nice dude.
was he the guy who was like singing
I'm gonna hang. They're gonna hang you in the
Hang in the
morning.
Morning? Wait, that was him in
Yeah,
310 to Yuma?
that's
You
Kevin
think he's
Durant.
like, Ben Wade?
Yeah,
Like
he's
the sleeping around the campfire scene?
Yep. He's just like one of those actors that it doesn't really matter what movie you slot him into. He does great. I'm blanking on his name right now, and it's gonna upset me. But the one Russian actor that gets put in everything, um, he played Satan in Constantine.
Was
He
he Satan in Constantine? He did a really good job in that movie. Like,
he-
I don't remember much of that movie, but I remember when he showed up or when Satan shows up.
he's in like fucking John Wick for 10 seconds. He plays like random bad guys, but he's the Russian cosmonaut in Armageddon.
Oh, really? Okay.
That guy gets cast for he's just like he is wonderful everything he does. It doesn't really matter what you cast him in, he's excellent. There's a bunch of actors like that that are just sort of fantastic. But Kevin Durant is definitely
Yeah, and what I liked about like Kingdom so much too was that you get in there and he's clearly the villain or whatever, and then he's trying to like win Noah over to his side,
yeah.
and he's
Well,
just like,
he's a king. He's not a villain. He is the villain of the story, but he's not a villain. He's a king.
yeah,
And all kings want power, and all
and I
kings.
remember like watching the movie for the first time. I'm like, all right, I really because the thing about it, and I've watched. There was like someone on YouTube who did a video essay, and it's like the weird thing about the 8 movies, all of them, all except Tim Burton, whatever, and even then you could argue it. He was like, the weird thing about all these movies, their antagonists are technically right in every film, and he basically boils down every single film that is. I'm like, and technically they are correct, and that's the weird thing in all of them, and
Well,
it's
that's
really it's really obvious in Kingdom.
he's an antagonist, not a villain.
Right, and
Difference.
like he sits down and he's just kind of like he lays out his plot, and his plot is not even nefarious in any way. He's like, I want to get into this bunker because there's technology in there that will evolve the
Right.
apes that faster than I can do in my lifetime. That's not necessarily a bad sentiment.
He wants to conquer, though. That's what he
Of
wants.
course he does, but I
Yeah,
mean, like that's
but
why
he's a
he's the
king. That's
villain. But he's also kind of like and then he sits there and tells him like those two humans like put two of them together, and they will scheme, they will plot, kind of thing. He
yeah,
literally warns the main hero, this one will betray you.
yeah.
Because William H Macy is like realistic and he's a little defeated, but it's like whatever, it's their world anyways now. And then there's this great moment at the end of the movie, and I can't believe they actually did it, where the main I forget the actor who plays Noah goes to whatever Freya, whatever her name was, when they say goodbye, and he just looks at her and says, Proximus was right. Like he has this, and then they have the camera. She's holding a gun behind her back in case he tries anything, and it's like, yeah, if you gained power, you'd throw us back in cages, wouldn't you? Yes, you would. Yes, they would, kind of thing. So
I absolutely would. You fucking kidding me? Like, doy. There's a reason Neanderthals aren't walking around either, right?
I've been reading about like a weird subject, but yeah, they've actually been doing studies on that recently. They've had some sort of
Loads of them, yeah.
breakthroughs or just like more clarification on what happened to Neanderthal strain and stuff like that over and around Europe and area and stuff like that. I guess nothing really fascinating to report, but there was an area, like a valley of Neanderthals that kind of went untouched for a very, very long time. For some reason.
Yeah, obviously my wife would know more about this since her degree deals with it. Bioanthro, and she focused in her like masters when she was still doing her thesis was early human tools
Mm,
and like how the tools affected our development and stuff. And so she did a lot of research on Neanderthals. So I've got to hear a lot of the stuff
yeah,
about
which is interesting because like Wes Ball talked about that with Kingdom, where he's like they're in their Bronze Age, and the reason they're actually like, oh, the apes are kind of moving faster because the tools of the previous sentient life form are not they're not all necessarily gone and wiped out. So they're coming across things, and they may not necessarily know exactly how it functions, but they're able to sort of use them and learn from them. And it's kind
yeah.
of like this interesting thing where it's like, okay, like if what if humans had a leg up or something like that? What if there was like a sentient lizard man species, before us, and they actually had like certain tools or whatever, then they get wiped out, and then Neanderthals and cavemen and whatever wander across and they find some tools, you know. One of the most fascinating things to me in history was learning about like the turning the tide of the Muslim invasion from northern Africa because we invented the stirrup.
Well, which
And
they already had.
when we were able to basically stay on our horses.
Yeah.
So we were able to keep our advantage to push them back down from France back down into Spain, back across the Strait of Malacca. And this is, I'm talking about like 1,000, 1,500 years ago, something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
stuck it, people from 1,500 years ago.
but it was just kind of like this thing where it's like, yeah, like just this one tiny little technological advantage, this one thing you added to the saddle help you retain, um
Like
helped.
it's a BuzzFeed article.
Like it's this weird thing, like history of the world would be completely different if someone didn't invent the stirrup kind of thing, like what?
I mean, there's all sorts of little things like pasteurization,
Yeah.
just heating up milk to 170 degrees for an extended period of time, the countless millions of lives that has saved. Like
Unless you're
it,
one of those weird new people who are like, no, man, we gotta drink unpasteurized milk. It's bad for you.
oh
It's like
yeah, the raw milk movement. You know what? One of the number one things they tell you to do before you drink raw milk? Oh, just
boil it.
boil it really quick. Hmm. Okay. Guess I will, boss. You know what else I'll do? I'll just go buy the milk that's pre-boiled. Anyway,
This isn't difficult. But yeah, so I mean, I was watching. I watched other movies. I just again shouting out that I love the Apes movies. I love those sci-fi. I love that sci-fi. And the original one, I learned. I don't know if you knew this. The original '60s one.
yeah.
You know who wrote it? Rod Serling. He wrote the final script treatment
No shit.
on the Charlton Heston Planet of the Apes, which is why it has a Twilight Zone ending.
Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense actually. I had always read that was a last minute addition.
Yeah, by him.
Hell yeah. Huh.
Because it was like, oh, you should do this. like this should be like like this should be this should be the twist at the end of the movie. No, they're on Earth, and it's just humanity blew itself up, kind of thing, and stupefied itself.
And thus an entire well, actually, there's how many of the older movies are there? It's not a
Five.
trilogy. Yeah, there's 5. A quintilogy?
Quintilogy,
Quilogy?
I don't know.
No, you know who makes the perfect airplane movie right now? Best in the game at airplane movies currently? Because
Mm,
in my mind, an airplane movie should be something that does well on a smaller screen.
right.
Uh, easy to follow, the language of the film, say, on a smaller screen you can't have really intricate shot structure. You can't
Yeah.
necessarily, hope that somebody notices something in the bottom left corner, that kind of shit. You can't do a lot of rack focusing, that kind of stuff. um you can't do really impressive color work on a smaller screen, that kind of stuff. uh Standalone, a really good airplane movie. Not every airplane movie is going to be a 10 out of 10, but a 10 out of 10 airplane movie, standalone. You don't have to know anything going into it, don't have to know anything coming out of it. And it shouldn't be an overly complex film. It shouldn't exhaust you to watch this movie. You know
Mm.
who just is fucking murdering the airplane movie right now? M. Night Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan is making old school 90s TNT fucking
You
thriller.
know, it's funny though, Andrew. You when Sixth Sense was new, you hated M. Night Shyamalan, if I remember right.
No, I don't hate M. Night Shyamalan. I hate that he became the guy for the twist. It wasn't Sixth Sense. It was that every movie he made after the Sixth Sense had to be some sort of
I
change.
distinctly remember you being like, I think it was you. I'm pretty sure it was you. It was like the first dissenter of M. Night before M. Night fell from grace. In
Absolutely, I was, yes, because I don't like the hook. Knowing what I know now, and we're talking about close to like fucking 15, 20 years ago. I don't
20 years ago, yeah.
know. Yeah, it's like 20 years ago. Knowing what I know now about his career and how he got shoehorned into having to make,
Mhm.
epic twist movies all the fucking time, I was wrong. But also I was 16, so get off my nuts. Uh eh, what I will say and why I will defend him now is, now that he's just doing it all with his own money and making exactly the movies he wants to make, he makes small to medium budget, compact thrillers. Like the perfect 90s movie is
See,
basically
I
what he,
have
and
heard this, and I was supposed to watch Split on the plane. I almost did.
that would be another perfect example of one of that. Now, granted, that's a shadow trilogy.
Right, but that's like it's like in the way like Xenoblade 2 is part
Right.
of a trilogy. Like it only at
Totally
the
standalone. Right.
ass end do they, oh, by the way.
Right. Trap. I just watched Trap just recently, and it's Josh Hartnett getting to like shine, as because Josh Hartnett's breakout role was in Oh. Did you ever watch O? It's a
What was it?
modern retelling of Othello.
Oh, no, I am not. I thought he was in a breakout movie where he's in like some cop film with Harrison Ford.
No, the Hollywood Homicide.
Something like that. That
No,
was
his
Josh
his
Hartnett.
yeah, that was Josh Hartnett, but no, that was not his breakout role. His breakout role, where he got like loads of attention, was in this movie. Oh, he was also in the Virgin Suicides, which got him
Mm,
a lot of attention. And then he plays the main bad guy, the guy that is trying to bring down Othello.
mm.
It's a pretty psychotic role, and you have to be able to turn on the creepy real quick. Well, that was kind of like what he was known for. He was known for being this boyishly charming stud who could turn on the psychotic. But his career sort of moved away from that, and Trap is just him showing you that. He plays a loving, suburbanite, goofy, cheesy dad who also happens to be a serial killer. And the whole movie is a sting operation that's happening on him at a concert that he took his daughter to. And so it's just him trying to low key escape a sting operation.
Oh yeah, you know what? You're saying this. I'm like, I do remember this. I remember seeing the ads. I remember the trailers for this. Sorry.
And I thought I thought like, oh, it's gonna. When I first saw the trailer, I was like, it's gonna be like a Taken blow up. Like I don't know, if and I didn't really even pay attention to who was directing it, and then decided to give it a shot. And it's just like it is a tight. Like there's a couple of like, I get the fuck movie. Like we really got to like give some faith to the script, to the film.
Mm.
But he's so good in it. Like he can switch from cringy dad humor shit to I'm just gonna burn this girl in oil to cause a distraction so that I can like he switches to
Mm.
terrifying serial killer on a dime in the same shot. He literally will go for he'll be talking to a person as cringy dad, and then they'll look away and his face will go totally psychotic blank. And then they'll come back and he'll just like light up all of a sudden. He does a really good job. And it's just like a really like I think it's maybe 100 minutes.
Mm.
And it's like there's a little bit of a twist, but it's not really like it's just more of a how did they do this? And they show you how they did this. Um, it's one of those movies where it's just like you're you feel like you could have seen this on a Saturday on TV, and it's just like, oh, it's pretty good. Now, is it going to win awards? No, but is it worth the price of admission? Absolutely. It's one of those.
Mm. People
Those
don't
are.
want that anymore, though.
I think people. I think people do. That's why he keeps making a profit and
I think
keeps
people
turning.
do, and well, people want it, but they don't know they want it, kind of thing. It's kind of one of those like once you see it, you'll be glad you saw it, but like you have to almost be talked into it.
Yeah, but I also think if Hollywood wasn't, shooting itself in the dick right now, they would advertise these things
They
better.
love doing though.
Oh, they really, really do. Well, the entire model has shifted to it. Is it a comic book property? Is it a
Yeah, it's a
long-standing
proper.
property?
Is it an IP?
Right. And movies like this, sometimes they're based on IP, but like for the most part, that was Crichton's whole thing. Crichton's books were the perfect Saturday TNT movie. Timeline? Like, do
Yeah,
you remember Timeline?
yeah, I remember
Like,
Timeline.
it's not gonna win any awards, but like you're like, I'm bored on a Saturday afternoon. Timeline.
Didn't he hate that adaptation though?
I don't know. He
I
hated
I
a lot of things.
I remember him. I think it was Timeline or something. They
13th
specifically
Warrior?
one of those like he just hated the adaptation like vehemently,
I don't know enough about him as a writer to be honest,
which
but
is
like 13th Warrior is another one of those like Saturday afternoon dad movies.
mm,
Hell yeah. We're gonna watch some 13th Warrior. We're gonna go hard for Antonio
Antonio
Banderas.
Banderas.
Hell yeah.
Isn't he playing? He's playing.
An Arabic scholar
Yeah.
who's been outcast from the court of the Shah, or it's not Shah, it's the Caliph.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been because he was in love with like the Caliph's woman or something like that, and so they sent him to the farthest reaches of the known map, and he goes with like a merchant friend, and he meets the Vikings in 900 AD, and
Right. Yeah. 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 I did not watch that on the plane. I watched a much better Antonio Banderas film on the plane, but
number one, how dare you? Okay, 13th Warrior. I'm in my dad era. It is a perfectly good movie. Is it going to win awards? No, but it is perfectly fine. It doesn't need an Oscar. All
I
right.
don't know if the first movie I watched was Oscar bait movie, and I don't even think it won anything. Maybe an acting one. I don't know. And I was kind of severely disappointed. You told me not to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. First movie I watched on the plane was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Because it's a Tarantino movie I watched. I generally enjoy Tarantino movies. I felt it was meandering for a very
It's his
good
weakest
chunk of the
film.
film. Yeah, it's probably of his films. I haven't seen his whole filmography yet, but of his films, I'd probably call it the weakest.
Eh, Okay,
Probably.
the thing is, it is an I would call it a new wave style meandering love letter to a time.
Yes.
And the plot itself is secondary.
Well,
Vibes. It's his vibes movie.
it definitely is a Vibes movie, and he does tie it together.
Yeah. Oh
The
yeah, yeah, he
theme,
does. Yeah.
the theme, the point, the crux of the film actually hits really hard right at the end, and
Right.
it leaves you with this. Oh, thank God it was going somewhere with this,
Right.
and it's a really effed up realization when you realize Leonardo DiCaprio is the villain in this movie.
Well, it the thing is
You could probably pick that up earlier on. It's kind of there hinted, but then it really like and thank God I'll give it credit for one thing. At the end of the movie, when Brad Pitt's being loaded in and he's saying like, his legs basically been stabbed and he's basically lost his thing. It's like they didn't, to my knowledge, anyways, they didn't do a flashback scene to the middle of the movie where he's reading the book and talking to the little girl about like the rodeo hand who took a bad fall, broke his leg, and now his
yeah.
career's blah, 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 and he's crying and whining about that because he thinks it's him. Oh, that's my career. And it's his stunt man. That's literally his stunt man. He's just too selfish to see it. And then he immediately goes to go party with Roman Polanski's wife.
Yeah.
Um, but and it's kind of like, oh, you like at the end of the movie. If you didn't pick up on it before, it was like Leonardo DiCaprio is the oblivious, self-centered villain of this movie.
I don't even know if you'd call him the villain. I don't think the movie had a hero or a villain.
No, well, I mean, hero's technically Brad Pitt, and I guess I see why Bruce Lee fans were pretty upset with the movie.
Well, that's a
Um,
whole old Hollywood lore debate. You have to be
yeah,
such a fucking nerd. Like, I mean, I am exactly the film nerd that would know that kind of thing, and I'm not that deep in my own ass about it. There people want to believe that Bruce Lee was some superhuman martial art, and maybe he was, but also his entire career was predicated on audiences going to see his movies because they believed he was a superhuman martial artist.
mm,
So it's probably not entirely true. The same way that Steven Seagal's entire career was predicated on him being this super duper martial artist who can't be touched. Aikido is this magic thing, and like, nah, we all know that Steven Seagal's full of shit. Tommy Lee Jones said Steven Seagal was full of shit before it was safe to do so. Like Tommy Lee Jones was in Under Siege and called Steven Seagal an unserious like twerp or something like that. Like he called him a dipshit, basically. It was Tommy Lee Jones.
you cannot endorse his unsanctioned buffoonery.
Yeah, it was
Well, he
that
said that
over.
about Jim
Yeah,
Carrey, but
but my point is like, uh, did Bruce Lee get his ass kicked by a stunt double? Probably not. That is like a old Hollywood legend, sure. Steven Seagal definitely got his ass kicked by a stunt man. That's what is it? Gene LaBelle, I think was his name. That's definitely a true story. But the point is like it's just an entertaining story. I don't know why you would, you know, probably because he was portrayed as a little bit of a ass, I guess.
yeah.
I don't know.
Which I understand why the family would be probably not super thrilled with that portrayal of him. Um,
Yeah,
I
it's basically speaking ill of the dead.
yeah,
And frankly, look, I like Tarantino as a filmmaker, but it's a fucking dweeb saying something about a man who definitely would have kicked the shit out of him. Like even if Bruce Lee wasn't the superhuman martial artist that his aura or his persona was built around, like come on. Bruce Lee's gonna do a jump kick and send fucking Tarantino into the 60s. like so
that's what
yeah,
he
okay.
wants. He wants the ghost or the zombie of Bruce Lee to rise and kick him so hard he goes back to the because this movie was
It was a giant love letter to
such
that
such a
era,
such
yeah.
a such a jerk off to the 60s film
60s,
Hollywood in the
70s,
60s.
yeah.
Yeah, because it was 69, so it's like right on the cusp. But like it's such a jerk off to like that moment of time in Hollywood. Obviously, it's called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I get it, but
Well,
yeah, I don't
the
know.
other thing is like people are putting, it's probably I haven't seen every interview about it. Maybe Tarantino has flat out said no, fuck that guy. But also like Tarantino loves all the stars in the movies from that time, so there's a pretty good chance that he loves Bruce Lee, and it was like a loving fucking you know story legend that he was included. Like I don't know, like you're talking about one of the biggest film nerds ever.
Yeah.
who for the most part is just like, if you make films, I love you because you're
Yeah.
doing the thing. So
I was a little
um,
surprised. I don't know if he had any role at all or if it was just maybe a voiceover somewhere, but I don't think he did. I think it was like maybe his first film without Samuel L. Jackson.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. That would be the. I don't know if Samuel L. Jackson had. I can't remember. I haven't seen it since I saw it in
Yeah,
theaters.
I don't think he did. He had a voiceover part in Inglorious Bastards,
Right.
where he describes the flammability of old film.
Yeah.
Um, he sets up the final scene as a narrator, which is kind of neat. It was a way to just put him in there. So yeah, I mean, because other than Brad Pitt, because I don't think Brad Pitt and kind of Leo, kind of because he only started working with Tarantino, but it was like yeah, it wasn't. You would see some cameos like Kurt Russell was in there, kind of stuff like that, but it meandered, and that was the part where I was just kind of like. It kind of reminded me a little bit, in a sense, of in a way of Boy and the Heron, where Miyazaki was just making his stream of consciousness film,
Well,
and he
he did
didn't.
say this was the one for him. Like he was doing this one purely for himself. He didn't give a shit.
Uh it
You know.
just feels like that. It feels like, and I don't mind that, but it did feel a little bit like, what's the point here?
He also owns the rights to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood
Oh, interesting.
completely. That was a big it was a big thing behind like getting that movie for release. The studio signed an epic deal with him where he got like
Hmm.
significant portions of the profit and he gets to own it, period. Um yeah, I don't, my favorite Tarantino story has nothing to do with film, but do you know who Fiona Apple is?
I've heard the name.
Fiona, she did like Criminal. She's got a really amazing voice. Was like a '90s heartthrob
Hmm.
musician, like wayfish looking lady. She quit cocaine because she got locked in a hotel room with Paul Thomas Anderson and Quentin Tarantino doing cocaine for an entire night or a theater or something. They did it, and it was so fucking unbearable and annoying that she quit cocaine the next day. And they're like best friend film nerds, so I could definitely see them getting into getting into the weed.
Probably arguing about like which B '70s film was better than the other, or
Like,
whatever, from Italy or something.
like just the worst. It was so bad that she swore off drugs. Like, 90s rock star swears off drugs because of Quentin Tarantino.
I mean, full disclosure, I think my favorite Tarantino is probably Django Unchained. Um, I think the acting in that movie is so criminally overlooked, and I think I don't mean
Samuel,
disrespect.
did Samuel L. Jackson win an Oscar for that?
No, he did not. He didn't even get nominated. I think it's one of the largest snubs. There are three snubs, like personally speaking, Oscar snubs. I'm like the three biggest snubs I can think of. Number one, Samuel L. Jackson and Django Unchained. I think that was some of the best acting I've ever seen, and it was done even without dialogue. Both when he's speaking, when he's not speaking, he is so good in that film that it is criminal that the only person who got nominated and won was Christoph Waltz. And he doesn't do a bad job at all. There's nothing wrong with Christoph Waltz's performance, but I'm like, Samuel L. Jackson is giving like the performance of a lifetime in that film. A lifetime, dang it. Leo
I
did a good job too. Jamie Foxx did a great job. Like,
There's a decent chance people were, especially in the academy, afraid of giving positive attention to the role.
yeah, so stupid, right?
For anybody that doesn't remember, Samuel L. Jackson plays a villainous house slave, which historically speaking was common. Like the
Yeah, it's
slave that
not
worked in the
actually. Yeah,
house would.
it's not some crazy. Oh, this was a pretty. No, this was a really dark period of a dark history. And this is what darkness breeds, kind of thing. And
But there
uh,
is there is certain, because Tarantino was the one doing it. It wasn't a serious look at that relationship. It was, you know,
but it was earnest.
well, yeah, Samuel Jackson
Like
elevated that for sure. Yeah.
he didn't shy away, because here's the thing, there's things
Right.
in that movie that we could debate whatever, like, oh, it is a exploitation film, but one thing I really like about it is that it is not shy of showing how awful
Yeah, right.
this country was to black people.
But
I like
that would
I
be
l-
why they shied away from it, I would imagine.
Probably, but I mean, and again, it's a villain role. But he's the smartest person in the whole movie. Um, he said that, which was really interesting on Howard Stern, where they were talking. It was right after that movie came out or whatever, and because Spike Lee's always had an issue with Tarantino, and Samuel L. Jackson, to Tarantino's defense, and the worst actor in that movie is Tarantino. Holy God.
Well, Tarantino's a bad actor, yeah.
Because he only has a couple lines and he's terrible
Yeah.
in the movie.
And he's doing like an Australian accent.
Yes, he's playing like this Aussie, this awful Aussie
Slave catcher, isn't he?
slave catcher mining company
Yeah, it is fucking
employee.
terrible. Yeah, it's a
And
terrible scene.
he is so bad in the movie, and he dies quickly. But Samuel Jackson said, like, to Tarantino's defense, he says every role he's ever put me in, I am the smartest person in that movie. He says, and like, I couldn't look, I couldn't in any justifiably way say like, oh, Tarantino, is racist or whatever, because he's always made me the smartest character in every movie, including Django, in which he is the bad guy. Leo's not even the bad guy; he's the bad guy, and there's a perfect scene. It's one of the best. It's one of the best scenes in the movie, where he calls Leonardo over, and he literally, just by looking at Christoph Waltz and Jamie Foxx, he literally figures out their entire plan. Like, he's never met them, he's not spoken to them. He has just assessed the situation perfectly. And then he was just like tells Leo exactly what they're there for, what they're doing, what their plan is, and then he even correctly guesses why they're doing it.
Well, I also think Tarantino gives him every one of Tarantino's most iconic lines, I think, come from Samuel L. Jackson. When you
I mean,
absolutely positively got to kill every motherfucker in the room, except no exceptions. AK-47. That's Samuel L. Jackson. That is a tasty beverage.
right?
Like, he's. I mean,
But I'm
he
like
got
that.
super lucky that he found Samuel L. Jackson when he did, because you're talking about one of the most talented actors of a generation being in your second film you ever
Yeah,
made. And sort of
yeah.
granted, Pulp Fiction had a great cast, but like
And it brought John Travolta back,
it did.
and
Yeah,
but yeah, like I think, but Oscar snubbing, Samuel L. Jackson, number one snub of all time for me is Django Unchained for Samuel L.
yeah.
Jackson. He should have got an Oscar for that. That should have been the other big Oscar snub. This is going to be weird because we're bringing it back to Cape shit. Angela Bassett should have won supporting actress for Wakanda Forever. I love Jamie Lee Curtis. I think she did a great job. She was very positive about the experience, but I think Angela Bassett deserved that Oscar
I
over
never
Jamie Lee
saw it,
Curtis.
so I have no skin in the game. I just
I
have to
mean,
believe you.
it's Wakanda Forever is like it's a whatever movie, and I remember like it's like nobody wanted to like dislike it, but when I literally said like I felt like they were building up to this being the third act, and then when I told like Kenny and Steve and Max, I'm like, what the third act was, and they're like, what? Why wasn't it that? I'm like, I don't know. It just seemed like that's what they were doing, and then they just didn't do it.
Huh.
But so the movie is Angela Bassett. Holy crap. That is, you want to see raw, powerful acting.
I mean, Angela Bassett, that's like her thing, though.
Oh, so good. But like, you don't even, because the thing is like, I mean, yes, there's a real element because she is playing, she is portraying the mother of Chadwick Boseman's character, who really did pass away.
Yeah.
But man, it's so good. It was so good. I don't remember anything else about that movie other than her scenes. Other and Damore's stupid ass looking ankle wings.
It's like it's Angela Bassett and God, I'm Viola Davis, I think, is the
Mhm.
other like both of them get cast for like raw acting or like raw moments.
Mhm.
Like if you want somebody that's going to make the audience feel it, Angela Bassett's a real good call. Like Angela Bassett, Viola Davis, who did like The Woman King,
Mhm.
uh, proving that she could also do that hard shit. Trying to think, there's another lady that's like you want people to just bawl their fucking eyes out. She's the lady to cast.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I never watched Wakanda Forever. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
the weird thing
Yeah.
is technically that falls into sci-fi.
It
Even
does,
though
but it's
I like to when I think sci-fi, I think like Blade Runner 2049 or like Annihilation. But like technically superheroes are sci-fi.
They are, absolutely.
And I hate
But again, like, for me, again, Planet of the Apes, Blade Runner 2049, and the weird one for me, you are the only one of the few people who understand me. It's Cloud Atlas. That
oh,
is
Cloud Atlas.
that is my kind of sci-fi. Cloud Atlas is my rebuttal to everyone who says you just like depressing stuff. I'm like, no,
No,
because
Cloud
I
Atlas
love
is
Cloud Atlas.
Cloud Atlas is another movie that I caught like a snippet of it on an airplane and was all like, wait a second, the Wachowskis did, and then I looked it up
Yeah,
and I watched it.
with the director of Logan's Run.
Yeah,
um because was it Lana and her sister did certain segments, because you know how it's different time periods.
yeah.
And the Logan's Run director, he did the more modern day stuff, like he did the stuff with um gosh, Jim Broadbent's character, where Tom Hanks plays like the thug who throws the guy off the balcony, and then his
Yeah,
brother like tricks him into signing away his life to like an old folks home.
yeah.
He did that one. I think he might have done the 70s segment as well.
That movie. Okay, if you're if you're listening slash watching this right now and you're like, I don't know what Cloud Atlas is, do not look anything up. Just
Mm.
trust me. Just trust me on this. Sit down. It's like 3 hours long. It is a long movie.
Oh, but it's so worth it.
Sit down and watch that movie. You will not regret it. I watched it, and then the very next day I watched it again, and then I think the weekend after that I watched it again with Elise. I think I just kept coming back to it, like the music and the visuals, and then just some of the acting. Like there's little things in it that maybe people would. No, no, there's not. It- it's it's genuinely like if they would have stopped there. Now, I'm not saying they should have. I'm just saying if the Wachowskis would have stopped there, that would have been a masterpiece. That would have been like it's a movie that I think about. Like it'll randomly just come to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, like it just randomly hits you that you want to watch it. Yeah, no, and then there's beautiful me. I don't know.
Yeah, Tom Tykwer is the Logan's Run director. He did the I looked up the name.
Also, if
Um,
you've gone through life thinking that Tom Hanks isn't actually that talented, that Tom Hanks isn't actually a talented actor, go watch that movie.
and he and other Tom Hanks in particular, and there were other actors who were like, this was not a studio made film. This film was actually independently funded.
Hmm.
It's the most expensive independently funded film ever. A lot of it from like European trusts or whatever.
Yeah,
And Warner Brothers distributed it in America only as a sort of show of good faith to all the other films that Lana and Lily had done for them.
I
Um,
had no idea it was coming out.
yeah, it had like didn't have any really advertising budget or whatever. There was this 8-minute trailer or something like I put on the internet, and I was just blown away by it. And for some reason, an 8-minute trailer still shows really nothing about the movie.
Yeah, no, Tom Hanks plays a horrendous villain, a heroic character, um, a mild villain. He plays every type of archetype of character in that movie, and they are all vastly different from each other, and they are all interconnected.
Yeah.
But like, it is a very hard movie to. If you have not watched this movie, you should just watch this movie.
And
it's
Hugh Grant apparently was like he begged his agent was like, "Why on earth do you want to do this?" He's like, "Please, please, I want to play a cannibal warlord."
Hugh Grant, or you mean
Yeah, Hugh Grant,
yeah, okay. Uh
because he was like, "I'm so sick of playing all these nice nice guy roles at the time." Apparently, he was like, "I'm doing this," and his agent thought he was insane. And he's like,
well,
"No,
he's great at
please."
villains too though. Hugh Grant is actually good at villains.
Yeah, and he's just like, I want to, like, like, because he plays multiple, like, 6 different characters in the film too.
Yeah.
One of them being like a cannibal chief,
Yeah.
chief of a tribe of cannibals. He's like, "Oh, please, I want to do this. I want to do this so bad."
It's
It's just
it's one of those movies where like it doesn't matter how much we talk about it right now. You just need to see it. I we literally can't spoil the movie for you because it's so broad and intricate
it
that there
frankly is like, okay, if you've seen Back to the Future or A Wonderful Life, more aptly It's a Wonderful Life, or even Forrest Gump, and the ideals in those films, it's like take that, but then expand it like by tenfold, because those films usually only take place in the course of a life or maybe a couple generations.
and this is like 6 timelines, right? Or 5.
Right. It's like 6 timelines over hundreds of years. And
Interconnecting and affecting each other.
it's just taking the idea of those movies that, Robert Zemeckis based his whole career off of. Um
It's
and just saying like, okay, well, like, but let's do it, but let's go all the way. Let's not just do like, oh well, this, a little, I saved my brother from drowning on his sled accident when he's a kid, and that
it's
changed all this other stuff.
it's better than The Matrix.
I think so. People
It
will
is a
never agree.
better it is a better
People
film.
will never agree with me on
It
this.
is a
Will never
better
agree with me.
story. It is a better film. I would even hazard to guess, I would say it's better shot. It's a better movie.
Yeah, I'm
And
not,
it
I again, like, I'm glad I'm not alone on this track, but it is my favorite. It is my favorite Wachowski
yeah,
film
no,
by a far.
if you have ever doubted them as filmmakers, which I don't know why you would, but if you've only ever seen like the Matrix sequels, maybe that's why.
Or Jupiter Ascending.
Or Jupiter Senate, like if you've ever doubted them as filmmakers, watch Cloud Atlas. I promise you. I mean, either you're going to hate me personally, or you're going to
Well,
be
the weird thing
awakened
is, like,
for
a lot of
something.
people still make fun of because, oh, Tom Hanks has a weird accent in the year 2312, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but you understand how language works, right?
Oh, when I first saw that character, I was kind of like, "What the fuck?" And then when Old George, I think is what the devil's name.
Yeah, Hugo
Oh,
Weaving's
Hugo
character,
Weaving, yeah,
one
uh,
of them.
one of his characters. But Hugo Weaving he's a villain in every single timeline.
Yeah,
And in the like way in the
20
future,
23 something.
yeah, it's like the way in the future. Um, he plays a devil character that is appearing to Tom Hanks's character named Old George,
Yeah, he plays a hallucination,
and he's
basically.
so creepy. He's great. Um, and we're like digging in deep on this one. Another movie that I saw on an airplane, part of it, and then watched it later, by the way, is Prisoners. Uh,
Denis Villeneuve?
Denny's first English, first
Yeah,
American film. Uh, if you haven't seen that,
I have not, and I've heard it's really hard.
ooh, it's good. It's good, but
Well,
it is dark.
yeah.
It's dark. I mean, it is super dark. Like you really it, Hugh Jackman goes on a path that like you want to be with him, you want to be with him on it,
Yeah.
and part of you is kind of with him, but he does some dark shit that you're kind of like, I don't know, you're not the
Is it
hero
kind of
anymore.
like, Benicio del Toro Sicario?
No,
No.
no.
Because, like, you kind of are on his side, and
Well,
depending on how you feel in general, because what a
Benicio
great
del
character.
Benicio del Toro is an anti-hero,
Yeah.
who has good reasons for what he's doing, but he's a bad guy who's doing something you agree with, right?
Right, yeah.
In Prisoners, Hugh Jackman is a good guy who does some pretty evil shit. Maybe for a good reason, maybe it sort of works out, but he's doing some pretty fucked up stuff. you can understand why he's doing it. But it's pretty hard to get on. It's you, I mean, you're on board with it because you're kind of like, well, if I was in his position, it'd be hard not to go down this path. But at the same time, like he tortures a mentally disabled guy that he is convinced is the bad guy.
Mm.
He locks him in a shower in an abandoned building and builds a wall around the shower and turns only boiling water on. And there's a small hole in there, and the guy's going to starve to death being tortured every day while Hugh Jackman asks him questions. And everyone else involved is like, hey, man, this is fucked up. Dude's clearly mentally disabled. And it's like, I don't know. You don't know for the entire movie whether or not he is involved, and he might be involved. And it could be totally justified. He could be an evil piece of shit. But also, how do you justify starving and boiling a man alive by inches every day in darkness? It's pretty dark fucking role. Hugh Jackman, fresh off of playing nothing but heroic characters,
Right.
by the way. Jake Gyllenhaal is a detective, and he plays a little fast and loose, but the detective sort of thinks that Hugh Jackman killed his daughters or killed his daughter. And so he's investigating all options, but he sort of also is investigating Hugh Jackman as it is. And so the movie is watching Hugh Jackman evade a cop who's actually trying to find, his daughter. But he thinks Hugh Jackman is the perpetrator. And so you're watching two people sort of bend the rules to try and save a kid, basically. And you don't really know who to root for.
This does sound like a Denis Villeneuve kind of
And
setup.
it is a beautiful movie. It's
Yeah.
dark and it's just well shot. And it's a gorgeous movie. It explains exactly all the reasons that I love his movies. But yeah, that's another one that I saw it sucks because I saw the last 20 minutes of it on an airplane.
Mm.
And then I went back and watched the whole movie. And so some of the things were maybe a little ruined for me. But it's still
Yeah,
excellent.
I still need to see that, and I still need to see Arrival.
Arrival's good too.
Complete my Villeneuve filmography because again, like Blade Runner 2049, to me is just kind of like, oh, what a great movie.
Arrival is a movie that has you know what a light bulb moment is?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So
And I already
you've
know,
heard that term.
I already know what the movie's about.
Yeah, so there's things after you watch the movie is engrossing and you're into it, and then after when you get home and you open the fridge to grab something out of the fridge, the light bulb goes off and you go like, well, that didn't really make sense, and you start trying to put it together, but like emotionally it all makes sense, and then
Mm,
it pulls you in, and while you're watching the film, you don't really get drawn out.
yeah,
After the fact, you'll sit there and be like, ah, that was bullshit, right? You're like, well, yeah, but it's still really well executed. It's good. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of like a bad Villeneuve movie.
well, he hasn't done a ton, but yeah.
Well, I
Um,
mean, his first films were failures.
hmm,
He considered himself a total failure. He quit filmmaking for like 10 years to raise his kids, and then thought, oh, I'll give it one more shot. And he had his big hit. And then his next movie, and it wasn't really a huge hit, but then his next movie was Prisoners.
right, and then
Um,
Sicario, and then
yeah, and he was like 50 or something, or late 40s when he finally broke out.
like Ridley
Um,
Scott.
Yeah, well, Ridley Scott was a commercial film or was a
Yeah.
commercial director. He did a lot of music videos and commercials. So he had a career
Mm,
before filmmaking. Uh it's just that when he finally got to make his first feature film, he was older.
yeah,
Same with Tony Scott. Um
Scott Brothers. I saw Nope
no,
on the plane.
on the plane. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
cuz
I saw Nope.
11-hour, so you watched quite a few movies.
Mm-hmm. Nope. And it was good. It was a long episode of The Outer Limits, which makes a
Hell
lot
yeah.
of sense because I think Jordan Peele produced an Outer Limits reboot sometime after that movie or before that movie or something.
Did he really? He's one of those
I don't think the series went anywhere because it's like modern day TV where it's just like something isn't a blow up hit immediately. It's immediately canceled.
Well, that and it can be several years between seasons, which means season 2 might get fucked anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, it's a long Outer Limits episode, and when I say Outer Limits, it's like kind of like Twilight Zone, but a little more harsh,
right.
maybe a little more like a little more fucked up. I guess is the best way to put it.
Mean spirited.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, the most mean spirited, messed up part of the movie, I actually kind of laughed because it did cross that line where like this is so absurd that I'm now laughing. Because have you seen Nope?
No, I haven't. That was what I was gonna say. Is like Jordan. I saw Get Out, but I haven't
Mm.
seen Us or Nope or didn't he get
Well,
one? He did one more, didn't he?
I don't even know if I should spoil anything for Nope then, because
No, don't.
Nope's a pretty good movie. But there's a moment where you're seeing a very, very twisted, screwed up moment, and he's like focusing on it almost too much, too hard, that I started just going, "This is okay, all
I
right."
it's like out the gate. I mean, granted, he was already a really successful.
Most people would be disturbed. I just want to put this out there. This is not a
How
dark
come?
comedy moment. It's supposed to be a actually really disturbing moment.
Horrific, terrible.
Horrific, terrible. And it just made me laugh because I'm like, okay, all right, okay, buddy. It's so absurdly effed up that I'm like, I'm just start laughing now because I'm a little twisted and sick in the head.
Now I definitely want to see it. Um, yeah, but Jordan Peele's one of those directors that like it seems like he can't really miss. Where
Yeah,
he's
not
just
so
like
far. The
he's hitting.
really interesting part, this is not spoilery, but there's a moment in the movie where a character does the Akira bike slide.
Hell yeah.
And it just reminded me how he got tapped because Warner Bros. Was looking forever for someone to do Akira live
Right.
action, and he was attached to do it. And it was finally going to get going, and then it didn't last very long, and it fell apart because he walked off set and creative differences. And the rumor is that he was like, "Well, I'm making a Akira movie. It's going to be an all Japanese cast or an all Asian actor cast." And they were like, we gotta have at least one white. And he was like, no. And he basically did not want to make an Akira movie with American characters. And Warner Brothers was like, we need one white guy in there. We need a couple white guys in there. That's the
But
rumor. I don't know if it's true or not. I believe it though.
I'll see if I can find anything on that. But yeah, no, he sticks to genre. This is what I was getting at with M Night. Genre films that are in that like 10 to 30 million dollar range, which I know sounds insane, but by today's standards is tiny amounts of money. You'll get more directors that get to just show they have chops. And I
Yeah.
think the way you're going to quote unquote save Hollywood is when Hollywood truly collapses or has like a come to Jesus moment. That's who they're going to turn to. They're going to turn to those genre works or to those genre
Right.
directors.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the guy who did The Harder They Fall,
Mm.
but that was he was a music video director. He's a music producer. And that was his first film. And when I watched it, I was all like, it sort of depresses me that this is somebody's first one. It had money behind it, but two, it was just so well done.
Yeah.
Like there was no like I'm used to first films needing polish and like you're having to overlook some things to get the good new fresh ideas. And that's just not true anymore. It
Yeah.
sort of bums me out, but that movie is excellent. That director, I expect, is going. If he hasn't done another thing yet, and I just missed it, that dude's going to be doing.
Well, that's the thing is like an interesting stuff now is small budget horror. Like I've seen a number of them recently,
The Substance. And,
stop motion, long legs, and
right, Long Legs.
late night with the devil.
Late Night with the Devil is supposed to be really good. Yeah.
It is. It is. It definitely has a divisive ending, but I get what they're going for, and I think it works.
Well, also Nadia is hyper into horror, right? Like
Yeah,
she
but she's very good at making sure she can watch a little bit of a movie and pick out whether or not like it's going to like her
Be
track
good,
record's
yeah.
kind of like immaculate in that sense where it's just kind of like I saw one thing and it's either just like nope or yeah this I think this looks good, this is going to be good kind of thing. So
I Yeah, I can. Generally speaking, if you're watching the first 30 minutes, you can tell if a film's gonna pay off or if a film's gonna like that first act. If they can't handle the act one,
yeah,
generally speaking, you can tell they're not gonna pay off very well. Although there are movies that like the entire movie. I would have to think about this and make a list because I know there's for sure movies that where like if you don't watch the whole thing and then see the ending ties it all together and makes it like oh. But if you quit at like minute 30, you're like this movie sucks. Like
I don't know because
there's
you have
movies like
you have the opposite effect with Stanley Kubrick.
no, that's true.
He tricks you with an act one.
It, I who was it that I made really mad by saying that? It was Rhodey. I think it was Rodan. Uh,
Like, come on, man.
Rodan loves Kubrick. This is a buddy of ours that we've known for years and years and years.
But Full Metal Jacket is like the purest example of that. I'm like,
He thinks all the best parts of Full Metal Jacket are after that first 45 minutes. And I'm
no.
like, really? It's just like back alleys and bullshit. Like all the best parts are in that first 45 minutes. I guess if you have the whole what's the difference between a well-trained VC, if they run, they're VC. If they don't run, they're well-trained VC. He's like, that's iconic. And I'm like, okay, I guess. I
No,
mean,
I've never heard this line.
yeah, well, because it happens in the second half of the film.
Yeah, but I've never heard it like quoted or anything.
Some people quote it. It's like it, but it is not the most quotable line. Like all the most quotable lines of Kubrick films, again, except Doctor Strangelove. Doctor Strangelove is from beginning to end an excellent film, and Kubrick does great at comedy.
What about
Uh,
Clockwork Orange?
Clockwork Orange, I think almost all the iconic stuff is in that first 40 minutes.
Hmm.
Once the main character has gone through the therapy to abhor violence,
Yeah.
I think most of the iconic stuff is done.
God.
That's not Kubrick's fault. That's also in the source material.
That's also in the song. Yeah.
In the source material, most of the really iconic stuff from the source material was in the first section of I think it was a book.
Book. Yeah.
Book or a play. That I'm not trying to say like Kubrick is obviously a genius filmmaker. You only need to watch Barry Lyndon or The Shining or like his visuals, his pacing, all that. Like he is good at what he does. I just think all his good stuff is in the first 40 minutes. Really, I think he's a 45-minute film director.
Yeah.
He that's my personal
master of Act One.
Yeah, and look, who am I? Fucking nobody, right? So don't worry about it. But like every time I say that Kubrick is like people who aren't even like film nerds, I sort of understand getting mad. Like we get mad about fucking everything, but like my dad got mad because I was all like all the best parts of I think it was like um 2001. And I was like, all the best parts of 2001 happened in the first act. He was like, what? The final scene is iconic. And I was like, the final scene is fucking nonsense.
Like, I mean, look, man, Monolith Soft, and I know we haven't talked about the fact that I was completely wrong in our last podcast, but
never remake.
That last scene is bull. I'm sorry. The only reason you would like that last scene is because you were doing heavy LSD in the late 60s when it came out.
Yeah, but also my dad was like 13 when it came out. It's
fair full disclosure, I was 13 when I first saw 2001 from a neighbor loaning us a VHS. Remember those?
Yeah.
And I saw it. I'm like, that's stupid. What is that ending? And then my neighbor explained it to me. I went, okay,
evolution of a super being,
right? And I'm like, so why didn't they explain? Well, why didn't they do anything to make that like
Clear.
clear or like legible. I'm like, why didn't they? I'm like, whoa, it's I'm like, it's
Right.
that
No, you
dumb.
read that in a magazine, sir. You didn't come up with that.
I'm like,
You didn't have any.
I'm like, nobody is going to get that. Like,
Uh, okay. I'm You know what it is? In the late 60s, it's all through the 60s, really. And I've talked about this before because it is a pretty substantial period in cinematic history, but you have the new wave period.
mhm,
And every single like part of the cinema world got hit by new wave. You had Italian new wave, French new wave is where Truffaut and Godard are from, like big names, very influential names. Spielberg and Scorsese and uh, Lucas and Brian De Palma, all of them heavily reference new wave films in everything that they did. Everything that they still do, they reference new wave ideas and techniques and stuff. You, uh, the whole like idea of like when you want your character to look like he's thinking deeply, they show like a
yeah,
fan behind his head and or a clock, that kind of thing. That's a new wave idea that shit like that became big in the new wave. Also, what became big is unexplained, I don't know, torrential visuals to get across an idea that is maybe boring on its face or not interesting on its face, or you want to get together, you want to get a grandiose idea across, like in Weekend, it'll randomly cut to a dude slaughtering a swan rather than show you fake violence. They'll
mhm,
get the idea across to the audience that violence, but it'll just cut to a dude butchering a swan. Guy's just holding a swan and it looks all fine. And then it's just him cutting and sawing off the head of a swan that is fighting back. This is a live swan. He does it. They just slaughtering pigs. It just cuts to him
yeah,
killing
yeah, yeah.
pigs. And it's just like, these are new wave ideas. So yeah, in the late 60s, Kubrick, who was, a London filmmaker, deeply mired probably in the new wave aesthetic or knew a lot of new wave artists. Yeah, he ended the Space Odyssey on a new wave psychedelic trip ass. Like yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Does it mean that it got it across? No, no, there's a lot of articles that explain what that section is, but not a lot of people that I've ever met that like get it immediately.
Yeah,
Now,
without any
granted,
help.
there are really good new wave films. Weekend is a good film. Eight and a Half is one of my favorite films, and that is a new wave film by Fellini, all about the madness that is making films in a studio system.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're not the first person I've heard talk about that film that way.
yeah, Eight and a Half is wild, but new wave, like it, it's poetry more than it's plot. Like
Right.
there is
Yeah,
plot,
yeah.
but it's not.
Poetry is the way to say it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not connected. There's no like A to B to C to D. It's a lot of vibes. Like there's a
yeah,
lot of vibes, a lot of edits. If you don't know the language of editing or the language of filmmaking, New Wave is going to just annoy you
yeah,
because a lot of it is very insular. Like if you study the language of cinema, you know what the colors mean. You know that yellow can mean cowardice or like that kind of shit. Like if you know what all the color theory is and you know what the visual theory is and you know the theories behind editing, from the Battle Potemkin and crap like that. Like if you know that stuff,
yeah,
you can follow the plot of a new wave film pretty easily. If you don't, and you just want like a vibes train with some cool visuals, new wave is also pretty entertaining. But if you're like, oh, I want to watch a relaxing movie, I want to watch Captain America Civil War, uh, which has, frankly, it spoon feeds you plot because that's what those movies have to do. And I'm not saying that to be insulting. Those movies do it very well, but you're not going to enjoy eight and a half. And that is also fine, by the way. I have a couple of friends who are quite successful, wonderful filmmakers. Don't give a fuck about eight and a half. Think it's a piece of shit. Like, do not like it. So it's not. I'm not trying to like give like a superiority. or like like I'm not trying to, I don't know, gatekeep. Go watch it, see if you like it. I'm just saying it might not be for you. Um, I realize that we're over, and so one last thing that I saw on a movie or on an airplane, that I to this day wish we got a sequel for, The Man from Uncle.
Did you ever watch the original series?
I did not.
I
That
grew
was
up
wasn't that
watching.
from the 60s?
Yeah, I grew up
Yeah.
watching that
Yeah,
with
The Man from Uncle.
Robert Vaughn, and David McCallum. I'm very familiar with the original series, much like I am very familiar with the original Star Trek, and did not grow up watching Next Generation.
Then you grew up watching Mission Impossible too, I imagine, right? Like
No,
the TV series. Oh, see, I watched a little bit of Mission Impossible with my grandmother.
I saw a little bit of it, but I watched a lot of Man from Uncle. My mom really liked. She had like these VHSs of Man from Uncle. We have like 2 or 3 episodes per whatever. So I'm very used to Man from Uncle. I watched that on a plane. I think I watched that on a plane to Orlando or something. It was good. I was fine. It was Guy Ritchie, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I like Guy Ritchie overall. I like most of his films that I've ever actually, I think all of his films that I've ever seen, I found entertaining. I'm not saying they're all like masterpieces or something, but like he makes entertaining movies. Uh, what I will say is that a lot of his movies are perfect airplane movies, not because they're all like 10 out of 10, like great, but like because you can come in on them at any point and be entertained. You may not necessarily know everything that's going
Yeah.
on, but like a Guy Ritchie film is going to be entertaining no matter what portion you come in on,
Yeah.
even if it's a bad movie. It's King Arthur, and you're like, ah, this isn't a great movie, but it's still pretty entertaining.
God, King Arthur, that movie
You know
again.
what I mean? Like it's still pretty,
Right.
like, you still got you got Jude Law. You know, he's still doing great. Like, right? Isn't Jude Law the bad guy in King Arthur?
I don't even remember.
Uh and I'm Charlie Hunnam also, just
Yes, I do remember Charlie Hunnam in the.
being cool as hell. You watch The Gentleman. You know, The Gentleman isn't Guy Ritchie's best, but it's entertaining. It's pretty damn entertaining. And Charlie Hunnam again, very entertaining in that. Hugh Grant, extremely entertaining in that movie. As a matter of fact, Hugh Grant is
That was
excellent.
entertaining in Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons is a good airplane movie.
Not
Dungeons
not
and Dragons is a great
not
movie.
not the Jeremy Irons one. No,
No,
I mean the recent one, the Chris
no, but
Pine.
you should watch the Jeremy Irons one too, just
Oh,
so
I've
you get
seen
an
it. I saw it in
appreciation for
theater.
how good this
I saw
last one
that
is.
in
So
theaters.
did I. So
Not both
and I
in
saw
theaters.
Aragon in theaters.
Oh my god! I'm sorry. Oh my god.
Love me some Jeremy Irons.
I don't even particularly enjoy D&D that much. To be fair, I've never played a D&D with a good DM. But
Well, that sucks, man.
but I've watched both D&D movies in theaters.
Play with a great DM, and I have a great time.
One day I should play D&D with a good DM and then see how I actually feel about it.
Well, the thing is you have to commit to like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
campaign lasts a year.
Yeah, I know.
Like you're meeting once a week for a year for 3 hours. Like I'll get you in on the next game if you want. You
I
know,
don't know.
I'll see if but like, you know, you're not going to pop in for a day and then be like, because then you leave everybody hanging, you know?
Yeah.
Um, any last thoughts on airplane movies? We didn't even get into your
No,
Japan trip.
no, but yes,
Movies
I
in
said
Japan.
this. I know I've been saying it for years, and apparently I said I blatantly straight up said last podcast, Xenoblade, you need to let Xenoblade X go. It was a tech demo. It's not coming back. It got announced follows in Japan.
It's my favorite comment on the last episode.
God damn it.
Someone just quoting you.
Here's the thing. Here is the thing. That's awesome.
It
It's
is great.
awesome. Like me being wrong is awesome. Like there is no way I'm going to be mad about this game existing. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I have no idea. And people think that's weird because when I saw this, I looked like, when the fuck did you have time to make this game? Is my immediate thought, because all the news that came out from them from weeks ago was they started an R&D department a year ago within the company. And then before that, there was a hiring spree for a brand new giant ass RPG. And then now they announced, by the way, we have the port of this massive game. It's going to require a ton of retweaking to make it run on the Switch. Yeah, we just did it, and I'm just sitting here thinking of that line. I don't know if it's an outtake or if it's in the movie. You ever seen The Ringer, which I think it's Johnny Knoxville
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
whatever. There's a
Yeah.
point in the movie where someone is getting mad at the guy for coming home late with all the athletes, and he's like, "Relax, it was okay." She's like, we just went out for a little fun. He's like, "It's midnight. We just went to get ice cream, okay?" And then one of the student athletes, is like, "When the fuck did we get ice cream?" And you see Johnny like start breaking down, like, "Oh my god, he can't contain his laughter." And I'm just like sitting here, like, Xenoblade X has been now is about to come out for soon. When the fuck did you?
When the fuck did we get ice cream?
The fuck did we get? When the fuck did you get? Did you get time to make this? So I was wrong, and that's great. No, it's great that I'm wrong about this. I'm very happy this game is getting another lease on life. I have a video going up right now. I had to run some DMCA whatever problems on it. But no, like I don't necessarily think it's going to sell great because it's coming out on March 20th, 2025, nearly on the 10-year anniversary of the game, but also on the 8-year anniversary of the system. I think a lot of people have probably moved on, but hey, man, it's got a better chance now than it did then. I don't think it's tying into anything. I think this was literally Monolith Soft going like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's see if we can put every Xenoblade game on one system. We can do that. We can put the whole franchise all on one system and just have it there. Tie it on a nice little bow and say, we did it. We put everything on it.
And next system, they're going to have the whole franchise on a single cartridge.
Right. They could potentially do that. Or they could even, and I think to me, it reads like we're doing this to tie it to cap it off, even though it's, as Nintendo has stated in the press, was standalone. But hey, we did all this. So I honestly think they're going to pull a Naughty Dog, and I think they're like, we did everything we wanted to do with this franchise. We're going to go make a new IP now. That's my like people think that this is for sure signaling that they're going to make a sequel to X. I'm like,
Nah.
no, I think this is for sure signaling that we wanted to make sure we put everything on one platform, and for the next generation, we're going to move on to a new IP. That is my take. Now, again, I was absolutely wrong about this game coming to the system, so I could be wrong again. Nothing in life is a guarantee. So, yeah, I'm wrong.
I would dig it if they were doing new IP. I want new IP. Give me all the new IP.
Yeah, and I am fine. I am fine because people are like, what do you want most out of them? I'm like, I don't care. Just
keep doing.
Just keep on doing what you're doing. Like, don't because here's one last thing I'll say is here is like I will not hear anything about, and there are many great developers in the world right now, many great development studios, but I will hear nothing about any studio being more proficient than this studio, which lifted nearly the whole goddamn system on its back and legs alone with how much they had to do for both Zelda games, their 4 of their own games, and their massive DLC campaigns, and then helping out on getting Splatoon 2 and 3 out and Animal Crossing out. Nobody has done more for any one single system since Rare on the N64.
Let's just hope they don't share the same fate, I guess.
Oh, no, yeah. Well, thank God they're fully owned, I guess, in a way. But, yeah, in the way, and it's funny. Isn't it funny? Because what also happened in Japan, I know this is we're kind of really late game talk here, but
yeah,
Sony officially shut down 2 studios. They officially shut down Firewall Concord devs, and they officially shut down Neon Koi, who was a small studio they bought and then killed them within 2 years. Like they didn't even get to announce their game or show a game. They were bought and then within 2 years shut down completely.
Knowing what we know about Sony's other businesses, is Sony in more trouble than we think?
I think so. I 100% believe Sony is nowhere near as well off as people like to think they are because they make God of War and whatever.
Well, I think it would be overall very bad if PlayStation collapsed. Now, granted, I think before that would ever happen, Sony would sell PlayStation to try
Yeah.
and save the rest of it. I don't think that's happening. I'm just saying, like, maybe they're not doing as well overall as we
Honestly,
thought.
I think Sony is just going to is falling down the same slope that Microsoft did.
They
They're
just
just
don't have
doing
the
it
money that Microsoft has.
right. Well, Microsoft can weather this storm, but like I think Sony's headed in the same direction, just slower.
Hmm.
Because they had through the last 5 to 10 years, Sony's been very good at, had a pretty good run. But
Yeah. Oh,
like
yeah.
I think the bottom's falling out a little bit on them now, and it's kind of showing. It's like, they spent $200 million plus whatever extra to get the studio up and running for this Concord dev, and they're immediately just shutting it down after this one. Yeah, this game flops. But I'm like, well, what good is one having one less game studio full of vets? Like, well, now you'll
Yeah.
never get money back because it was like, oh, well, it was a big gamble and we lost big on this gamble to buy this studio, build it up, fund this game, and it completely flopped like nothing else. I'm like, well, sure, but it is a team of vets. It is a team of like industry veterans, um, and you're not going to get any money back by shutting them down. Now you've just lost that money completely. Now there's no chance of getting money back.
It's just so weird that they decided to go after Overwatch rather than like. It just seems like the sci-fi shoot. You had a bunch of veteran shooter developers, and there's other than Doom, there's not really any sci-fi shooters killing it
Yeah.
right now.
And when I see the anger from some people, I kind of understand a little bit where Herman Holst, the head of PlayStation right
Yeah.
now, who followed up from Jim Ryan, these motherfuckers years ago talked about how excited they were, and word is that like they saw the early builds and were really excited and really believed and were really gung-ho about, yeah, this is going to be great for us. They're the ones who decided to shut the studio. Herman Holtz, he was so sure, convinced Sony to give him all the money. We got to buy this studio. We got to build them up. It's going to be so big. He was the one who made that call, and now he's the one making the call to fire everyone, close the whole thing down. Everyone's out of a job. Nobody goes home. But I'm gonna get me a multi-million dollar bonus this year. I'm gonna get bonus in the tens of millions of dollars out of my dumbass gamble, because frankly, it's not like the people
Yeah.
who started this studio sat there and tech broed their way into giving them, give us $400 million, give us $200 million. Trust us, bro, you're gonna love it. No, it was your head honcho, little Dick Jim Ryan and Herman Holst, both who were utterly convinced of this thing and had the money themselves, and then had way higher power and pull, and then they got people even above them to convince them, but they suffer no consequence.
Well, yeah. What is it? The executive class always fails upward.
Right. They are literally failing upward. They're Bobby Koticking their whole way through this this thing. Except Bobby Kotick's games were actually successful. That's what you can difference there. But yeah, these guys, I mean, fucking Herman Holtz, Jim Ryan, they're Don Matrick in a different coat of paint.
Ooh, ooh, that hurts. That's
So I understand a little bit of the anger there, where it was like, hey, we've got this idea for a hero shooter. And then in 2020, 2021, Herman Holtz coming in like, this is going to be great. Like him not being able to see his own writing on the fucking wall. And it was like, no, let's just keep pumping millions and millions. It's going to pay off. It's going to pay off. I'm sorry, but like the guy who's writing the checks also bears responsibility,
right.
should bear responsibility for its failure as well. I'm just saying.
And they never ever will.
And they never will, because that's the system they've set up.
I mean, if you can get an executive job, you definitely should. If any are open and you would like to give me an executive creative job, like hell yeah, man.
Bro,
Will I be good at it?
I would love to waste hundreds of millions of dollars and get a bonus for it.
The thing is I would, if I somehow got I don't think any of this is true of any creative endeavor, and we'll end it on this. I don't think any of these creative executives, I don't think any executive at all wants this shit to be bad. Like they all want this to be good, not just because they want to make tons of money and add it to their name, but like people want to make good things. They want to put good things out there. Human beings, for the vast majority, want to make positive things, good things. It's not like I think Herman
Yeah.
Hulse sat there and greenlit Concord to waste money or something like that. Like
Right. Yeah.
he
This was not some like the producer's scheme or something, you know.
right. So I'm not trying. I know it's cynical to like sit there and be like, all these motherfuckers are here. There's all they do is fail. Like, okay, I'm gonna dial it back and be a little realistic. I am certain that all of these people are trying to do good. They're trying to make good things. I think that they have been off the mark for quite some time. I think the entire industry sort of doesn't know. It's kind of in an identity crisis. It doesn't know where to go. The ideas that they had aren't working anymore.
Yeah, it's very just weird to me in a way because like Jim Ryan's not a game developer. He's never been a game developer. Herman
No.
Hulse comes from development, right? So and his Horizon games are bona fide successes.
Yeah.
But it's kind of this he's out of his element, Donnie, because Killzone was mildly successful. No, he's clearly stated like they are never making a Killzone game again.
I know, and I think that's such a mistake.
I don't know why you'd write it off completely.
Yeah,
but-
reboot it, bitch. What
or
are you
just
doing?
or give it to someone else. Whatever.
Yeah.
Give it whatever. But Horizon, a Killzone was never as successful as Horizon. And what is Horizon? Horizon's just a big open world RPG, single player
Yeah.
open world RPG game. So maybe Herman Hulst, okay, you made a successful genre type game, but that doesn't mean you know exactly what is going on in the multiplayer space.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy to sit here and say from a chair, but like, I don't know how you don't realize at some point, like, you're all chasing the ball. None of you are trying to get ahead of it. Like, at no point in Concord's development were you making anything other than a game like Overwatch.
Right.
Well, we had this card deck system. Shut up. Shut up. It's Overwatch.
Yeah.
It's Overwatch from 2 seconds of viewing it. And you couldn't see that. But you don't have to suffer consequences for your mistakes on that.
Yeah. And I would argue they could see that. They were doing it on purpose.
Right. They probably just thought we'll have the next breakaway.
Right.
We're going to make the next we're going to make the next Coca-Cola. No.
It's not a 300 or 200 million dollar accident. They did that on purpose. They built exactly what they wanted to. And by all accounts, it plays wonderfully.
Right.
But nobody
This was
wanted to play it.
this was not this was not a game. It was not a failure of quality.
Yeah, and they didn't phone it in, like
Eh,
they put all the effort into making a good game.
It's just the absolute failure of you want to have a multiplayer time sink in a market that is flooded with multiplayer time sinks.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
Fucking money.
I mean, obviously it's for money, but it's like, how could you? I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm on the outside looking in, but it's like I don't know how you don't see this. I don't know how you don't see how bad of an idea it is right now to go for things that require time sinks like COD and Fortnite and whatever and Overwatch, and try to. I'm going to do the exact same thing but better. Like
These are all 6-7-year-old decisions, though, too.
yeah,
2 years before that game got greenlit, even they were making decisions on what they wanted to see in 2025, 2024. So it's like that game. How many? It was 6 years of development.
It varies wildly. Like the biggest, it's like it really got going during and right after COVID. But yeah,
Right. So it's like uh, you're talking about 5 years ago they were making this. That's the thing that people don't understand, especially when it comes to like movies or TV these days can sort of pivot and get something out within a
Mhm.
year. But like all these entertainments that we enjoy are years in the making. Like it is one thing. It's one way that it is easy to be sympathetic with the Herman Holtz and Jim Ryans, and so is that they're making decisions they don't have a crystal ball. They're making decisions 5-6 years out,
Yeah.
and like,
The
who the hell
thing
knows?
I was saying this in 2018,
Yeah, no, I think
let
burnout on
alone let alone
Overwatch
2020,
burnout
2024.
was already a thing when they were making this decision. I agree that it is a misstep.
Yeah, well, I
It's
just
like,
think even without burnout, it's like why are we making the same thing as what's already existing and popular?
because COD clones were doing well too.
Yeah, but they never did as well as COD, and
No,
it just got worse and worse because they had all of the 2010s to look at what would happen to EA's attempts to dethrone COD to just know that you don't
can't be
do it.
done. Yeah,
You can carve out an existence alongside it if you're lucky, but you're not overtaking it.
right,
The only way you overtake something like COD or Fortnite is if COD or Fortnite themselves completely implode. And then people have to want it back. There has to be like this sort of waning period of like, I want to go back to this, where it's like something has to go away and then people have to miss it. And then you have to be there to bring it back. That's
right.
how it works. Not at the same time. So,
Yeah, no, and I feel like we've said it before, and so I won't like beat a dead horse. Is oftentimes market research has no forward looking data points.
right.
At best, you can tell sales data is usually at least 3 months. Like the newest sales data is usually like 3 months old. Isn't that like or is it 30 days or something like that? I guess now would be a lot
3 months.
shorter.
Three
But like,
months.
yeah, okay, it's 3 months old. So your decisions that you're making today about the next thing based on the latest information, solid information you've gotten, is already technically 3 months out of date.
Right.
Eh, These aren't easy decisions. But it's like, if you're constantly chasing a trend and you're doing it based on what sold well, at best you're 3 months out of date when you're chasing that trend. And
Yeah.
trends on the internet change so fast. Like, what?
I just think people should do what Monolith does, and frankly, what Capcom's doing.
Make good games and shut the hell up?
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
focus on what we're good at. I'm not saying make the same thing over and over, but just like focus on what we're good at. We make good Resident Evil style. We make good survival horrors. We make good fighting games. We make good,
right.
4-player monster hunting games. Let's just focus on that, and then we're finding success. Monolith does what they do. They they dick around with the battle system every game and whatever, but they're doing what they do.
But then that also means that when your development studio's name is on something, you can get excited about knowing what you're getting,
Yeah.
which is, it's nice. It used to be what Konami had long before they shit the bed. You know, Konami had several. I mean, they actively worked to not have the developers get a following, but they had several development teams that if their name was on it, people knew what to expect. They
Yeah.
knew. They knew. Oh, I'm going to get something good.
I mean, to this day, people still think, "Oh, it's a Capcom game." It's like, buddy, there are
Yeah,
multiple production studios within Capcom. Like, there have been times where just slapping that name on there doesn't guarantee you nothing. But
unfortunately. Although nowadays, for most things now, like, yeah, Capcom, Capcom's killing it right now. So yeah, Capcom generally, if Capcom's on there, you might be able to. You could just take a swing. Fuck it, go for
yeah,
it.
like right now they're not doing anything. Right now it seems like it's a little sad because they've basically forgotten about anything smaller, and they're
Right,
just focusing on their hyper success. You know what, I'm not that's bold because that's not necessarily true. You have Exo Primal, you have Kunimitsu, you have the
right.
Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. They have at least one small game a year now, but yeah, like right now, it's like okay, they slap their name on something. It's probably going to be at least a decent time.
Yeah, give it a shot. On that note, though, since we're a real long episode, maybe you're on a plane to Japan and you need
Yeah,
something to listen to. Here we are,
yeah, yeah.
11-hour episode. We have producers to thank. If you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week was That Dude Bro. Thank you, That Dude Bro. And our producers for this episode are Dragon Wolf Makoto, Austenite, Zybernite, Skronami, Croy35, Hyperviper89, LCL Mayhem, and Ziggy Z. Thank you, dudes. I'll catch you next time.
Later, dudes.